Knowing how to work with the workbook properties is important, again, for the job as well as for the exam. One of the cool things is that what we're going to show you pretty much applies to all the other Office products as well. So if you learn how to do this in Excel, then you know how to do this in Word and PowerPoint, and vice versa. If you already know how to do this in PowerPoint or Word, you know how to do this in Excel. One of the things about properties is that it maintains information about the file. Now, properties isn't the information you have in your file. It's the information about the file itself. To get to see the properties, we have to go to the Backstage area. To get to the Backstage area, we click on File, and now we're in the Backstage area. Notice to the right is our Properties area. This gives us information about the size of the file, the title, the tags, the categories, when it was last modified, when it was created, who created it, and who edited it. You can change any of these properties simply by clicking on them. So if I wanted to add a title, I would click here in the titles area and add, this is a title. I can add tags to it. And these are different things to consider. By adding tags to your file, you're helping with searching. So if you have, for example, budget files and you're trying to look for certain ones, you can narrow them in by doing certain tags. It's kind of like keyword searches for web pages. You can add categories to things. So you can change categories. You can create categories. So you can create categories for your budget sheets. You can create categories for your grade books. You can create categories for whatever. And that also, again, helps you find information, helps you find these files. You can add different comments. Let me go to Show All Properties. This opens up even more information. Here I can add comments. So if I want to add information about who edited this or what the purpose of this thing was for, I can put that in there as well. Now, these are properties associated with the file itself. Again, this is not information that's going to be in the spreadsheet. It's going to be information with the file itself. It's kind of embedded into the file. You're not going to see it in the worksheet. Along the same lines as properties are things like being able to inspect the workbook. For the exam, you need to be very familiar with this. There are several different concerns when it comes to sending your workbook to others. You might want to make sure that it doesn't contain personal information. You might want to make sure it's accessible to people with visual challenges. And you also might want to make sure that it's compatible with other versions of Excel. For example, I was working on a project for a client. This was in PowerPoint, and we were using the brand new PowerPoint with all new features, and our end client couldn't get into work. Well, we found out the end client was using several versions older versions of PowerPoint. And so some of the new functions weren't working with that older version. So the newer versions of Office sometimes don't completely work great with older versions, and we're going to show you how to find that out. First, let's see how we inspect this. Well, right here is Inspect Workbook. We're going to click here for Check for Issues, and we have different options. We can do Inspect Document. This checks for hidden properties, personal information. Check accessibility, and check compatibility. Now keep this in mind. I want you to remember this. Let me get there again. Let me go back to a workbook. This is what we did in the last video. We go to File, and right here is Inspect Workbook. There are several questions on the exam based just off of being able to inspect it, check for accessibility, and check for compatibility. Let's first check for personal information. So we're going to do Inspect Document. Tells me what I can check it for. I want to inspect it. And now it's looking. It tells me what it found, that everything's good. Over here, it did find some information. It found document in the document properties. It found personal information. I can easily click Remove All. Click Reinspect. And there we go. Take a look at accessibility. What we're doing here is we're looking for potential issues that might be in our workbook for people with different challenges. So for example, they might be visually challenged. They might not be able to see. And so an image really doesn't do them any good. We're going to go back to File. We're going to go to Inspect Workbook, and we're going to check for accessibility. We click this. It's going to look through the workbook and find potential issues. Notice that it's found a problem, missing alternative text. And it says, hey, this picture right here doesn't have any alt text. What this means is that there's alt text that you can put in pictures. So if a person has a screen reader, they can have the description of the picture read to them. So I'm going to right click on the picture. I'm going to edit alt text, and I can put in something simple like smiley face. And that gives a description of the picture. Let me close that out. It's got that, no problem. But now it has a problem with the sheet, the default sheet name. So I can change this into something that means a little bit more. And now I'm passing the accessibility checker. Doesn't mean everything's great, but this is a great way to do a quick check on your workbook. Again, the same idea when you're using PowerPoint and you're using Microsoft Word. The last thing we need to look for is issues with backwards compatibility. Let me pull over a workbook that I know for a fact is going to have a compatibility issue. These little doohickeys right here are something we're going to look at later. These are known as spark lines. They are not compatible with older versions of Excel. So let's find this out. We're going to go to File. We're going to go to Inspect Workbook. We're going to click Check for Issues. We're going to look for compatibility. It will say, oh, we found a problem. The spark lines will not work with Excel 97 through 2003 and will have issues with 2007. So we found that these spark lines are going to have problems, older versions of Excel. Now that doesn't mean we have to get rid of these. If we know for a fact it's being used in an organization which has the newer version of Excel, we're good to go. But if you're dealing with a client that has really old versions of software, this might be a concern for you.